There is some breaking news that Len Dawson has passed away. Not a surprise. He had gone into hospice care on August the 12th. And Len Dawson was what Sonny Jurgensen is to Washington. Len Dawson, Hall of Fame career with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then segged right into broadcasting. 33 years as part of their radio team. I think Sonny did a little bit longer than that, but close to it. And then he was also one of the original hosts with Nick Buoniconti with Inside the NFL, which was innovative on HBO when it started back in the early 70s, and he did that for a long time. It's interesting to look at his football career. He played 19 years, but he spent the first 5 years as a backup in Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Hardly played. So 5 years into his career, it's like, okay, he's nowhere as a quarterback. Now, in most cases these days, that means you're on your way out of the league if you haven't been a starter 5 years in. But in those days, you could do that because there were fewer teams. There were only 14 teams in the NFL. And then the AFL came along in 1960. I guess he was still under contract in Cleveland. When his contract ended, he went to the Dallas Texans, who would become, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. And their head coach was Hank Stram, who had history with Dawson because Stram had been an assistant at Purdue when Dawson played there. So he knew how good he could be, and the rest is history. He took the Chiefs to the first Super Bowl. Yeah, it was the first Super Bowl ever played. Dawson was the quarterback there. There's a great photo of him at halftime in his uniform, smoking a cigarette with a Fresca by his feet. Different times in the NFL in those days. And then he pulled off a victory that probably doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. He won Super Bowl IV. Super Bowl III was won by the New York Jets and Joe Namath. That's the biggest Super Bowl win ever because it put the AFL on the map. But by winning the following year, that legitimized the AFL. And what Len Dawson, it was a defensive effort that really made the difference. I mean, he was 12 of 17 for 142 yards in that game and threw a 46-yard touchdown pass to Otis Taylor in the third quarter that sealed up the game. But by winning that game, that put the AFL on the map, and the merger had already been agreed to. And so once the merger happened, it wasn't like, oh, God, we're taking on this inferior league. Now, they were on equal footing with the NFL, and that game proved that, what Len Dawson was able to do. I had an experience with Len Dawson once that is one of the highlights of my career. Back in the early days of the other station, there was something called the Lunch Bunch. And the idea of the general manager was to have a Friday lunchtime show where Sonny Jurgensen, Sam Huff, and Frank Herzog, the iconic team that broadcast their games through the glory years, all three Super Bowl championships, that they would have a lunch at Duke Ziebert's. Duke Ziebert's is, it's long gone, but at one time, it was the place where the movers and shakers met for lunch. You'd see congressmen in there. Jack Kent Cooke ate there. Larry King was there. It was the place to go and the place to be seen. And to have Sonny, Sam, and Frank broadcast a radio show at noon there on Fridays was a really cool thing. And Frank had to miss a couple of the broadcasts, and I was lucky enough to fill in. So one Friday, and I'll never forget this. This is just circumstance that there happened to be some type of a Hall of Fame event happening in Washington. I don't know exactly what it was. But at the table where I was broadcasting, I had, to my right, Sonny Jurgensen, Sam Huff, Len Dawson, and Ray Nitschke. I mean, you talk about four of the most iconic names in the history of the NFL. And my job was to just take it in and out of breaks. Because those four guys, I mean, Nitschke, I don't think did a lot of broadcasting, but Sonny and Sam and Len Dawson, they were Hall of Fame broadcasters as well as Hall of Fame players. So I got four Hall of Famers there. Three of them could be in the broadcast wing, and we got an hour to fill, and we don't need a lot of Andy. We just need Andy to get from one break to another and let them talk. And it was just great to remember that. And now, sadly, three of them are gone. Sonny survives, 88 years old yesterday, and they're going to retire his number on the last game of the season as they play the Dallas Cowboys.